Hello, my name is David Paul, and along with my son James, we present to you the Paul family lines. We live in Sugar Land, Texas, and started construction of this layout on December 20th, 2014. I model in HO scale and have been modeling in HO scale for over 50 years, ever since I found a hand-me-down HO starter set in our basement in New Jersey when I was in second grade. The inspiration for the Paul family lines comes from living in New Jersey and in Texas. My father worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad for a few years, and while living in New Jersey, I grew up along the 4-track main lines, the CNJ, the Erie-Lackawanna, the PRR electrified lines, and eventually the Penn Central. I loved the GG1s and the Jersey Shore line down to Bay Head. In 1970, we moved to the west side of Houston, where I watched the red MKT and later the green and yellow MKT engines run along Interstate 10. Along with the Southern Pacific, Missouri Pacific, and Santa Fe and other parts of town. I loved it all and didn't really want to pick one over the other. So for that reason, all these elements will be present on the layout. The layout features mainly mountains and cities. Those are my favorite modeling elements. The time period is pretty much any time during the last half of the 20th century. The layout is an end-to-end layout with staging and reverse loops at each end for continuous running. There are 3 levels. The first level contains only staging. The action occurs in the second and third levels. There are 14 industrial sidings for switching opportunities. For control, we use Digitrax DCC along with JMRI, the Java Model Railroad Interface, and we have many sound units. The place names on the layout are named after places in New Jersey. However, they are not modeled after those locations. Instead, they're just modeled after the look and feel of those locations, as you will soon see. The layout starts on the second level at Newark and then runs through Harrison. Both will eventually be scenic as urban areas like they are in real life. Next stop is Long Branch, where the branch line diverges at Gladstone. From there, the main line runs up an offset helix to the third level through Perth Amboy and Summit. The final location is named Sutton Place. Enough of the introduction. Let's get started on the layout tour by going to Newark and watching the action. The layout tour begins at Newark. Here at Newark we have a 4-track passenger car station, and you can see all 4 tracks are occupied now. The track to the left is the freight bypass, which also serves as a reverse loop track to turn around the train since this is the first station, or behind the station it goes down a helix to get to the staging in the lower level. So you can see this looking through Newark. This elevated track in the back is a branch line. We'll see more of that later. And then the return track of that freight bypass I just mentioned comes around the end, and you can see in the throat of the yard comes in and joins back up to the main line. We have a little engine facility right here, so we can do engine changes. 3 tracks there. And right here we have a lumber yard, so we actually have an industry in here. As I said, this is an unscenic area, and this will be a bustling urban scene. You can see there'll be one of those Walthers row houses back there. There'll be a number of those, and there'll be big buildings and roads, and it will be a very busy, kind of gritty, urban-looking scene when it's complete. The next step on the layout tour is Harrison. And Harrison really begins at the throat of the Newark yard and has 3 tracks. Named Harrison because Harrison's right next to Newark in New Jersey. And it's also going to be kind of an urban scene there. Those buildings are just placed there. They're not there permanently, just to have a place to put them for now. But for right now, you can see that 1 track is serving as an engine storage track, and there's a couple of crossovers here just to simulate some busy track work and opportunity from some signals and some interesting motions there from the freight traffic point of view. This next area is unnamed at this point. You can see there's a nice long bridge there in front, and that's the main line, and behind there is the branch line. And it's going to be a mountainous area. There's going to be a lake down there, and with some pretty steep banks, and I think about maybe putting a little park so you can have people down there fishing and doing other things. But this is going to be a pretty deep scene when it's all said and done. I think it should be one of the scenic highlights in the railroad when it's completed. Next stop on the road is Long Branch. Long Branch is a city in New Jersey. That's a fairly important railroad junction. The track farthest to the left is a passenger track station. There'll be a siding there and with a platform, and you can store a 4-car passenger train there, typically a commuter train. The next 2 tracks are the main and a passing track. And if you can see those engines there, I've placed a CNJ and a Pennsylvania Railroad Heritage Scheme engines there, which is appropriate because both the CNJ and the Pennsylvania Railroad own the Newark and Long Branch Railroad, which was running through Long Branch for many years. And then there's a sort of out of place MKT switcher. And the other highlight of Long Branch is this industrial area. There are 4 different industries in there, and with some interesting track arrangements to cause some switching challenges. And actually that's going to be the next area to be scenic. We've already got some of the buildings in place, but the rest of the background scenery is not there. I've already been able to do operations in this area, and it does make for an interesting and enjoyable switching session. Once leaving Long Branch, we get into the scenic areas of the layout. The train there in the front is the train pulled by those 2 heritage units, and the passing track ends just to the left. But you can see this was a rugged mountain scene, and we will see that high line up there later as it is from the upper level. What we're looking at here is a helix. So the helix is about 60 feet long, and it has a 2% constant elevation gain for about 14 inches of overall vertical gain. I like to call it an offset helix because obviously it's not concentric. You can see that first bridge in the foreground, the second bridge behind it. It's 2.5 turns, and those bridges are separated by a good foot or so. There's a 34-inch constant radius on the helix, and so I've offset the curves for this scenic possibility and the ability to build these mountain vistas and tunnels and those bridges. You can see the light in the tunnel now as it comes through the second turn of the helix and crosses the high bridge right here over the helix lead. There's a sand processing facility on the left, and once again that's not fully completed. That's just building is stuck in place. You can see there's 2 side tracks that come in there to provide a switching opportunity. And 1/2 turn more for that train. They'll be at the top of the helix and on the second level of the layout. Our final view of Summit from the far end. You can see there's some buildings here, and then that track in the foreground leads to an industry that also processes sand. The track along that retaining wall in the back actually leads to a hidden staging track in the upper level as well to complete our upper level staging. All that staging is hidden behind the scenery and runs along the side of the wall. Once again, I'm hoping to complete Summit up here very shortly. Let's take a minute to watch a train come up the helix. You can see this train here is passing that stationary train pulled by the heritage units in Long Branch. He's exiting the passing track, and soon he'll be coming out to that tunnel portal to the right to make the first complete turn of the helix. The town here is partially scenic. I put some buildings here, but they're not permanently in place. They haven't fastened them down or leveled them or anything. They're just kind of in the place where they're going to be. And now you can see the light in the tunnel. This train is being pulled by a RSD 15, a Broadway Limited, and by an F7 behind it. And soon it will make a complete circle and come through the second turn of the upper tunnel portal. Now let's take a look at the upper level of Helix. Like I said, when the Helix gets to the top, after 2.5 turns, it comes into Perth Amboy. And once again, Perth Amboy is another New Jersey town, since it's a gritty industrial town, and that's exactly what this will be. Several things happening at Perth Amboy. There's a passing track, so these two tracks in the middle here are actually the main and the passing. The track farthest to the right actually goes to a hidden staging area in the upper level, and the track down to the left goes to this yard, this small yard of Perth Amboy off to the left, and it also goes to some hidden staging at the upper level as well. So that way we can run point to point from the lower staging to the upper staging. After leaving Perth Amboy, we come to the town of Summit. Summit is named that since it's also a town in New Jersey at the top of the hill, and this is the highest altitude town on the layout here as well. So Summit has a retaining wall just like the one in Prototype does, and there's a train station there. All this work was done during the COVID lockdown period, and it's not quite finished yet. Should be finishing this up very shortly. So you can see I got all the scenery forms in place, I got the roads in place, backdrop, everything like that. Just need to finish out putting greenery in here, trees and some detailed things like that. Panning back toward Perth Amboy. Another view of Summit taken from the other end. You can see the station more clearly there, the wall, and the turnout there is what creates the reversing loop on the upper level. And once again, after leaving Summit, we go on the High Line. And the High Line is a big reverse loop, which is the line that runs over that 2.5 turn helix that was seen earlier in the scenic part. You get a nice view of that. You can see the bridge in the foreground for the first turn, the bridge in the background for the second turn, the lead going under both bridges, and finally one of the scenic highlights of that layout is that bridge there, which is part of the reverse loop. And we have a little action happening, a train coming across the layout, coming down the helix. Same train we saw coming up a few minutes ago. The final town on the upper level is called Sutton Place, and it's also in that big reverse loop, and it will eventually lead back to Summit, and Summit's at the throat of the reverse loop. All it is the main line with another side track to allow a 4-car passenger train, like you see that Metroliner there. And there will be a station platform there shortly. You can see the 2 bridges there, built from that new Walthers station kit. And that should be completed very shortly as well. Finally, at the end of the line is Gladstone. Gladstone is at the actual end of the branch line. The branch line starts in Long Branch, and it ran through that Newark City scene on the upper trestle, as we saw earlier. Gladstone is named not because of a resemblance to the real Gladstone, New Jersey, but just because Gladstone's at the end of the line there. And this is the end of the branch line, just like it is in the Prototype. A little more complicated here. We have 5 industries in this Gladstone to provide switching opportunities, including 2 tracks in this train station. So you can see 2 passenger trains there right now. And they all lead to that throat, and the branch line heads on toward Long Branch after crossing that bridge right there. Another shot of the Gladstone terminal taken from the other end. Now I'll walk through the layout to get a better perspective. Standing at the layout room door, off to the left is the scenic area, the High Line and the helix. And you can see Sutton Place off to the left. And as we walk through here, we can see the High Line cross, the duck under. If you're about 5'10", you can slip under, but otherwise you're going to have to duck a little bit here. Then there's this lift out, which is made so you can just reach down here and pop this up very easily as we come around. Going up to the upper level, you can see the town of Summit with the fresh scenery on there, the greenery on there, and the backdrop. And then the town itself and the Summit Station. Static grass, a lot of Woodland Scenics products here. continuing on through the room, we take a left turn, and you can see Town Long Branch off the left, Harrison off to the right, and Perth Amboy up above me. Then down the lower right is where the Newark areas can eventually be, and then this future scenic mountainous area. As you can see, there are control panels around that show occupancy and some of the staging tracks, and you can throw all the turnouts through control panels. Now on the lower level, you can see there's lots of storage down here. So you can see the tracks, the helix coming down the lower level, so that we can have about 6 tracks of staging down here. And then on the other side, we have 5 receiving tracks over here. And they all come around the room. On a lift out, you can see down there the lower left. That's not used during normal operations, but it's used to move the trains on the receiving track right there to the staging track right here. It's like stage 5 trains doing it. Now that we've seen the layout, let's watch some action. Watching a train coming to Harrison on its way to Newark. This particular train is going to take the freight bypass. I'm going to go around the reverse loop to come back around. And here comes the California Zephyr just leaving Summit into the newly scenic area that I just put the green on last week. Still need to put ballast and trees and things like that in there, but the greening itself makes a huge difference in the look.
Here's some UP and KCS power borrowed from a friend, making its way through Summit on the newly scenic area of this line.